Hi, I'm Danielle Davies, and you're listening to Roar, a show that amplifies the voices of women breaking barriers, leading change, and making real impact. Keep listening for bold ideas and stories that inspire you to find your voice and make some noise. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Roar. I'm your host, Danielle Davies. Today, we're talking about something nearly every woman has dealt with, being dismissed when it comes to her own health. Whether it's symptoms brushed off as anxiety or years of misdiagnosis, the truth is we deserve better. My guest, Maria Haugen, knows that story all too well. She's the founder and CEO of FOXX Health, a platform built from her own experience of navigating a complicated, often invalidating healthcare system. And instead of just pushing through it, she decided to create something new. Launching this September, FOXX Health is designed to support women through every phase of their health journey with tools, tracking, and a sense of agency we're often denied. In this conversation, we talk about the personal cost of being ignored, the leap it takes to become a founder, and what it looks like to build something that might just change the game for women everywhere. So let's get into it. Welcome, Maria.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh, we're so excited you're here. And it's something that affects every woman. So I'm really, some topics we talk about here are less universal, but I think it's universal for every woman to kind of want to take agency or ownership of her own life. But what you're doing affects women everywhere. So we're really excited to have you. But before we even get into what FOXX Health is, let's talk about who you were before this. So, because I want to talk about your transition into founder as well. So who were you before you started this ambitious new journey?
That's a great question, and I get it all of the time because I've purposefully stripped my LinkedIn of my past. So I would love to tell you about it. Before I was a founder, I was working in startups in chief revenue and chief marketing officer roles. I also have my MBA in supply chain and was doing Big Four consulting. I started my career in marketing, working in traditional agencies with brands like Campbell's and Pepperidge Farm. So if you ever had a Milano cookie, I made the packaging for their holiday cookies.
Oh, and we definitely have had a Milano cookie.
Right, exactly. I figure most people have. So I am a explorer by nature, and that included my career. And everywhere I've been and all the experiences I've had have equipped me to be a founder and start FOXX Health to be where I'm at today.
That's an awesome history, and it's very cool. And I like how you kind of have been a little bit of everywhere, and that gives you so much, breadth of knowledge and like wealth of experience. But let's talk about, and your founder story can be found on FOXX Health. I've read it myself, but let's talk about that personally, because I'm sure because it's such a great founder story. But what was that moment that changed this from you? What was the health struggle that turned into something? Or, not everybody who starts a health startup is motivated by their own personal experience, but I want to say a lot of women are. Yours in particular stemmed from your personal experience. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. My journey that led me to FOXX started on a Tuesday on my couch. I was laying there and I was watching TV, and then all of a sudden I started feeling my heart beating, and I wasn't doing anything. I was just laying there, and I felt my heart beating, and then I felt clenching in my jaw on my left side, and I felt my left arm starting to hurt, and anyone universally, heart attack.
Yes.
Heart attack. And I'm like, oh my God, what is happening? And I was so scared, and I was home alone at the time, and I was like, I am going to die. Something's wrong. And I went to the ER. I went there. They immediately, hooked me up to an EKG. They immediately, you go into an ER, you say, my chest hurts, heart problem, whatever. They immediately take you back. And I was taken care of to the point of, are you having a heart attack? And the answer was no, because they can tell from an EKG. And so I left the hospital, and they said, go to your primary care. It was probably an anxiety attack. And at the time, I was in my late 20s, 26, 27, and I was very healthy, and I had never had a panic attack in my life. I was not taking any medication. And again, I wasn't doing anything stressful or strenuous. And I went to my PCP and they're like, well, you weren't having a heart attack. So it very clearly it was an anxiety attack. And that freaked me out because I had never had one before. So I took it at face value.
One.
Yeah, right, exactly. And it kept happening. And it happened again and again. And the pain kept getting worse and more severe. And I went back to my doctor and they said, well, stop working out and stop like being active. And I'm like, okay. And at the time I was cycling and I was doing CrossFit and I was like, this is healthy. And like, this is a part of my life. I don't want to just stop doing that. But I did. And it kept happening and it kept happening. And they were like, well, it's probably anxiety. So the best we can do is give you some antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication. And I'm like, the only thing giving me anxiety right now is you. There is nothing else in my life that is making me anxious. And I was asking to see a cardiologist and I was asking to see a specialist, and they said no, because there's no indication that it's your heart. And they were more saying that it was really, again, anxiety. And, well, women go through these cycles with their hormones and blah, blah, blah. So I started cold calling cardiologists. And I was explaining to them what was going on. And they're like, well, did you get an EKG? Is it problems with your heart? The answer is no. And so they were like, no, you cannot see us without a referral. And finally, I found someone who would, but they said, because you weren't a referral, it'll be a month and a half until you can get an appointment. So while this is going on, it's been about 6 months. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I'm stressed. Now I'm stressed. Okay.
Great.
You never know when it's going to happen. And it's actually a heart attack. And it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf, because everyone's like, oh, that just happens. But what happens when it's like the one that kills you? And I was so scared. I go to a cardiologist, first appointment, diagnosed with costochondritis, something that happens regularly with women. And I started taking medication and it was gone within a couple months. And I've never had a problem since.
And what exactly is costochondritis?
Yeah, costochondritis. So costochondritis presents itself differently in women, but essentially what it is, the muscles over your heart are contracting and it has to do just with an irregular beat. And I was just talking to someone actually this week who had it, and our symptoms were different. And she was feeling a lot of pain in her rib cage, whereas I was feeling mine more up towards my collarbone, in my chest muscles. And it's just that type of different presentation of symptoms. It's really just the irregular contraction of those muscles. And so by getting all of the extra, your jaw hurting, your arm hurting, everything, it's because when those muscles are contracting over your heart, that is also causing spasms in other parts of your body. And that's how it's presenting itself. And
is this something, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Is this something that a lot of women, is this pretty common? I mean, it sounds like you went in and as soon as they saw you, they could tell what it was. Yeah. So it wasn't that difficult of a diagnosis to make once you could finally be seen.
Right, correct. And in women, we don't know, like a lot of times people think it's just stress, but that is an actual condition and it does happen a lot in women. And the woman that I talked to, she said, I've never met anyone else who actually had a diagnosis of costochondritis. And
because people are probably, they stop at the anxiety and they're like, I guess I have anxiety. Like,
right.
Okay. So
women are taught to be anxious. We're taught that is the root of our problems.
Right, right.
Like that is in our head already, which I think is unfair.
Yeah, and also because it can be anxiety itself can be blamed for so many other things. It's not that I'm anxious, but that doesn't mean it's the root cause of everything that could possibly go wrong with me. Mm-hmm. It devalues all the other things that can be wrong.
Exactly.
We're right.
Yeah.
So tell me, you have this experience. Mm-hmm. How does this make you see yourself? Like, because you said even, you started off, you were totally fine. You're on your couch, you feel good. By the end of it, you are now getting stressed because you're in pain. You don't know if you're going to survive. You don't know what's wrong. You don't know how serious it is. But how are you starting to view yourself? Is it changing your view of yourself, or are you starting to already think, okay, we have a problem and I need to fix this, or is it making you kind of internalize? I'm just curious what was going on through your head beside, in your head besides this kind of external, we need to have the answer to this.
Yeah, I mean, it made me doubt myself and it made me become very angry because I was like, what am I so anxious about? Because first instinct is to believe your doctor, right? And so I'm like, it must be anxiety. What am I anxious about? And then I started questioning, was I really happy? Was I okay? And what's going on? And I started looking at mortality in the face and I was like, I don't want to die. And that's a terrible thing. And have I lived my life? And it was a lot of internal back and forth because when was the next one going to be the actual heart attack? And when was I going to drop dead? Who was going to find me dead? I lived alone. So I, a lot of questions that really made me question my own sanity, but also my own longevity. And I had so much life in front of me. It was scary. I was terrified.
Absolutely. I would be terrified too. And I just think about how many women this kind of happens to. I mean, I'm sure it happens to men as well, but women, we have for our listeners, and I'm sure a lot of people know this, women were diagnosed with hysteria for any complaint we used to have in the past. And you could be locked up for this. And it could be something as simple as this, and you saying no, really, and kind of demanding answers and really focusing on finding a solution that caused you to be deemed hysterical. So I think that it speaks to so many women and so many women's experiences. But the thing that's interesting for you is that you did this, you had this experience, you've gotten your answer. Now, presumably you could go back to your regular life, right? Go back to regular programming, but you've decided instead to switch paths entirely. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Well, it took me some time after that happened to even believe I was okay. And taking the medicine took some time to kick in, but I have been fine. But I waited. 6 months, I was just kind of like, am I okay? And then I started, coming to terms with like, I'm okay. And you have to reprogram the way you think because I had reprogrammed the way I think of like, this is going to change my life forever. And it really wasn't. Like, it was the simple fix. Life is still worth living. You're going to keep living. And so then I took some time to reflect and I was like, what the hell just happened? How was it this unserious, but somehow so serious? Like, why was I not being taken seriously about my pain and what I was feeling? And I was like, there's got to be a better way. And I started talking to people and telling people what happened and just friends and family. And then I started expanding it into more patients and doing research on social about patient stories and also speaking to doctors in the space. And for 2 years, I was having these conversations about what exists to make sure things like this don't happen again and what doesn't exist. And what didn't exist is FOXX. And that's how it came to be. When I first started the company, it was just called Company XX. And I had a deck and I would just add to it. Everything I found, I would just add to it and like, oh, this is interesting. What if it could do this? And this was interesting. Or, this already exists and whatnot. And that's how it really came to be. So it took 2 years before I even officially incorporated because I didn't have like the actual idea in my head yet. I just knew something had to change. And then I incorporated and got started.
Well, now, you were still working during all of this. So you're
Yep.
doing this and then you're doing research on the side for all of this.
Yep.
Wow. And all right, well, let's talk about it. What is the plan for FOXX? What does it do? What's it stand for? And I am nodding to the name as well because it started off as XX company, but
Yeah.
what is it now? Because I like what you're thinking about for the name.
Yes, absolutely. So FOXX stands for only double X chromosomes. And I want to be very clear because when I thought of FOXX and I thought of that name, it was never a political statement. And now it can be seen as offensive, as if I'm not including people who identify as a woman. And I want to be very clear that having it be for only double X chromosome means that that's how we're training our data. Everyone is entitled to use FOXX and everyone is welcome to use FOXX. I want everyone to be as safe and as healthy as possible. And by knowing that our data is being trained with research studies done for people with double X chromosomes can help keep people safe, informed, and aware of their own health.
Okay. All right. That's great. And I like that a lot. And it also clarifies like what you're shooting for, because you are, well, because you're saying you're training your model on XX chromosome, but let's talk about what it is that's being trained.
Absolutely. So what FOXX is, what the features we have are, is it's the new home for women's health. So I'll walk you through a user journey. You log in. What you can do is log your symptoms. We'll prompt you a question for the day. How are you feeling today? Good? No symptoms? I need to log something. Because sometimes no symptoms gives us a great indicator of what your good days look like and what they don't. Once you do that, you can go in and you can either look at your checklist for an upcoming appointment. And the way that you can make that is go through a health guided assessment. So, for example, in my own situation, if I was going to see a cardiologist, what I could do is not only give my age, height, my weight, but any pre-existing conditions. I could tag the symptoms in from the past month if that was why I was going in, so we could look at the frequency, any medications I was taking, and what my goals were for the appointment. If I needed a diagnosis, I didn't know what was wrong. And what we're doing is training our own AI model that has relevant women's health data, commercially available data that's recent, that will actually run your information through. And what we're going to do is not diagnose you, but we're going to give you the correct information to bring to your doctor and say, have you considered asking your doctor about this? Or you are taking these two medications together and they've never been studied. Ask your doctor about it. What we want to do is prepare you for the conversations that you have with your doctor when doctors with existing patients only have 15 minutes and with new patients they have 30. We don't want to villainize the doctor. We want to help them get to a correct diagnosis quicker. And what that means is giving women the opportunity to show up better for our own self. Then when you're in the appointment, you can take notes. You can make sure that you have all of your questions. You can drag and drop and rank them so you know what you want to get out of your appointment. And ultimately, we want to make sure that you are getting the most out of your own health journey. You know what to do, how to follow up, and you know what questions to ask. A lot of the interviews that I had with women were that by the time we make an appointment and then we're sitting on the table, we forget why we're there, or it's not currently relevant, and we leave going, crap, I forgot to ask that question. And how are we going to expect a doctor to correctly diagnose us when we're not giving them the correct information? So it's really how are we showing up for each other to decrease the statistic that women are, in the past 2 years, over 66% of women have received a misdiagnosis. And on average, it takes 4 years for women to receive a correct diagnosis. We need to show up, and showing up means empowering ourselves with information.
And just for our listeners who maybe aren't aware, part of the history of women in healthcare is that women tend to live longer than men, but spend more of their lives in declining health than men. So it's really important. And also that we don't have traditional, we don't have the length of studies for women that we do for men. And we are not just different bodies. We have different heart attacks are experienced differently. There are different kind of preventable strategies that we can have, and we're just not aware of all of it. So I'm just throwing that out there so people know why this is so important. Tell me something. When you mentioned like keeping track of the questions and stuff, so will this require users to track everything? Like, does it have a component where so for example, sorry, I'm all over the place. If I go in and I want to say, I used Noom for a little bit and I want to track my food intake, but eventually like Noom has to deal with health and weight loss and how you're feeling and stuff. But there's like a lot of different tracking abilities. Is FOXX tracking things like this? Do you have to input? How does the inputting work? And what exactly are you tracking? Is it because health is huge, right? You could be tracking anything. So can you tell me a little bit about what types of things you are tracking or people are going to be responsible for tracking on their own? And I don't mean that as a negative. I mean it as, a positive, something to be aware of.
Absolutely. So when I say tracking, I'm relating it to symptoms specifically. So we won't have an ability to track like your exercise for that day or what food you're intaking, but we can track, for example, if my chest was hurting, I can go in and put chest pain. We'll have a person where you can actually select the region, because what we don't want to do again is walk into a doctor saying, I looked this up on WebMD or Fox told me this is what's going on. A region, and I can put if it's throbbing pain, stabbing pain, sharp pain, if it's isolated pain, or if it's movement, how severe it is, and how long it lasted. And that way you can also write notes, because by correctly showing the doctor, telling the doctor what our symptoms are, that's also going to get us to a diagnosis quicker and more accurately. And then what we're doing is, you're logging your symptoms over a month, 2 months, 3 months after our launch. So this will be coming by the end of this year. We're going to have something called symptom wrapped, similar to Spotify wrapped. But what you can do is say, hey,
That's awesome.
These past 3 months, you've logged chest pain like 50 times. Like, because you don't realize it like day over day, right? Especially if it doesn't happen every day. But if you're constantly checking up on yourself, you can see the bigger picture. And I think that's something that women tend to put aside, because we're on the move. Women are on the go. So what do you mean you want me to tell you how many days I've had chest pain? Like
Yes.
it comes and goes. But if I can see and be like, whoa, I need to talk to someone about this. And that came from speaking to women who experience migraines or experience all of a sudden, a lot of women experience stabbing pain in their stomach or uterus area, and then it goes away. And they're like, oh, that's just part of being a woman. And they just go on their day. And that was something we were like, that is not normal. How many days have you experienced that? And they're like, I have no idea. It just happens sometimes. And I'm like, we should be talking about this.
We absolutely, it's funny you say this, because I have my own personal health right now. I'm in perimenopause. And so there's a lot of, well, first of all, that's another thing, like anxiety. Like perimenopause is like, well, everything can be attributed to perimenopause, and many things can. And so you have to be really careful and informed. And really, it would help to track these things. But I had this problem with my foot, and I think it's like the tendons. This is based on my own research, of course. So, because I haven't gone to the doctor, and I called the doctor to schedule the appointment, and that's what they said. Well, how long has this been happening? And I'm like, a year? Like it seems outrageous that you would have a pain for a year and not get it looked at. But as women, like you said, we're on the go. We don't necessarily make the time for all of these things. So we have to be really well informed about, we have to be able to see that data to say, hey, this is an extraordinarily long time. Would I let somebody else say they were in pain? If one of my kids said it's been hurting for a year, it would be a cause for alarm. So I think it's really helpful to have it for ourselves. Quick pause to invite you into the Roar community. Roar is all about amplifying women's voices, and you can be part of it. I share the messy, unfiltered, behind-the-scenes stuff in my emails, things you won't hear anywhere else. Sign up at listentoroar.com and get in on the real talk. And hey, if this episode hit home, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, drop a comment, or pass it to that one friend who needs to hear it. Every share helps bring more women's stories into the spotlight. All right, let's get back to the episode. Tell me a little bit about the feedback that you're having, because like you said, you finished your beta round. So can you tell me a little bit about the experience that some of your users have had?
Yes, absolutely. So a lot of the feedback for our beta round had to do around how we're collecting the information, because while we're building it, we're like, we have to ask you this many questions. And we were excited because we're like, that will get us the best response and get people into it. And yeah, someone's going to sit there and enter all this information. They're curious. That is not the case. User experience is users want quick. They want something that doesn't interrupt their day. And if they have time, yeah, they'll sit there and go through it. But how are we making it the most convenient? Because of what we just talked about. Women have so much going on. Someone can't have time to sit there for 5 minutes entering stuff. They want to log in really quick, be like, crap, my foot pain's happening again. 30 seconds, I'm just logging it, and then I'm leaving it. And that was something where, because the team is so close to it and we were building it, that you don't think of, because yes, we'll be a user, but we also built it. And so it's a different lens to look through. is using it versus building it. So that was big. And then, we changed some of really the visuals, how it looked. People were saying that we have great branding and people know FOXX and we haven't even launched yet. And people were saying that our branding didn't match our design. They said, I was so excited. You guys are so lively and I love the way you look and you talk, and your language didn't really match. And that was also a wake-up call because we're obviously writing the copy. The questions you see have all been written by someone in FOXX. And to have someone flag that, not only was it pretty amazing to have such a phenomenal group of beta testers to be that open and honest with us, but it really gave us a sense of we need to relook at this. How would FOXX say that? How would we say that as a company to enhance the experience? So with those changes, we've been able to change how it looks, what the user experience is, and really what your interaction will be at every single step.
Okay, first of all, that's awesome. And as somebody who's spent time in copywriting, I can really appreciate that you have to get that. Sometimes that you just have to start off with something, the basics, and then you can get your kind of your brand behind it and your voice and the voice that responds the best to your clients. But tell me a little bit about how. So say I download this, it's available. I'm going to download it on my computer. Can you tell me about what the first steps are for me, for a user to take? Like, obviously you're going to enter your name and stuff, but tell me about what kind of information I'm going to have to enter at the start, kind of get myself set up.
Yeah, so that's interesting because we actually aren't requiring you enter a name.
Oh, wow.
Making it so you can enter a username and an email. And we want to do that because if a user feels as though they are at risk by putting their real health information on an app because of all the mistrust that's happened in women's health and what's going on, publicly with, different corporations, different startups, and even the government, we want to give them the opportunity to be anonymous. So you can use a username and then a dummy email. The email is just if you lose a password or we need to get a hold of you, and you can use our app that way. But aside from putting that information in, you'll also be prompted, why are you here? Is it to track your health? Is it to take the assessments? Is it to better prepare for your appointments? Because we really want to know why people are utilizing the app. We do ask your age because that will also help prompt us to show you different partners that we have that will be featured in the app. Show you, hey, this would be helpful for you. And then also you'll be prompted just for, do you want to receive notifications like, hey, check in today. Do you have any symptoms? Do you not? It's as simple as that. If you want to put a toggle on your home screen of your phone, it's a very seamless onboarding process because then the journey is yours. How you want to utilize FOXX, we'll have those features, and we'll also have a community den, which is, it follows the Reddit model. So through everyone's anonymous usernames, anonymous or not, it's up to the person. You can go into different dens, so FOXX dens, and they'll be for different health. Yes, be for different.
I like that.
Thank you. Be for different health concerns or areas. So there'll be a den for perimenopause, for menopause, for cancer, for breast cancer. And that's where you can go and speak to other women. I think it's so important that women not only have doctors to lean on, but also other women. We're all learning this together. The research is on the way, and other women's experiences can drastically impact yours. And that's something that we're really passionate about at FOXX's community.
Oh, so that'll be an ongoing feature then, the FOXX dens. That's a social feature that will stay on there?
Yes.
I love this. So it's almost like, it sounds, besides being a tracker, it's almost like a social networking for your health type of thing. And honestly, that kind of communication is the most helpful. Like knowing what other people have gone through. Even just yesterday, you think you're taking responsibility for your health and you are, but just yesterday I was with a friend I hadn't seen, and we're both kind of the same age and we're going through different things. And she was like, well, I'm taking XYZ and it's worked. So maybe I need that and maybe I don't, but at least it arms me with the information to say to my doctor, hey, my friend was telling me about this. What can you tell me? Is this something that will work for me? And you're not going to get that kind of information without you. Yeah, you can rely on your one or two friends, but with a community of women, that's great. And I love the idea of setting it up, on a Reddit model, because that's just, the
People are
best.
more likely to share when they're anonymous, and we want to give
Absolutely.
women the freedom to do so. And also with the questions, just like you're saying, you can take our assessment and add all these questions automatically, but we also have an area for free form because we want women to be able to add their own. So it's like you write a medication down, you can still add it to a list because walking into your doctor's office, walking into your appointment, you're there for a reason. It should really be an equal conversation, whereas for so long we've been taught to take the back seat in a doctor's office. And again, it's really the doctors aren't even in control of their own schedule. They're overworked. Less and less people are going into the profession. And we need to help them help us. And showing up for ourselves is the first step. One thing we really like to say at Fox is we can't change the system overnight. We can change how prepared we are to survive it. And
Oh,
that's
I
really
love
important
that.
to us.
I love that. And it's interesting because I was going to ask you about the fact that, you're training AI, right, to do this. You're using an AI model and it's which can feel for people who aren't necessarily so familiar with it really kind of like cold and not intimate, but you're bringing it into a very personal space. It seems like you're really navigating that tension well, and you're really receptive to your listeners. Will there be moderators in these, or not necessarily moderators, but is there a human aspect behind this, or will there be a human aspect, that somebody that's checking in on these forums or the dens? I love that you're calling them Fox dens. Very
Oh,
clever. Will there, because I mean, it is so human and people are talking about it. I'm just curious how that will work.
absolutely. So there will be moderators within the dens. A couple of our partners will have dens that they sponsor. So, for example, we have a gut health partner we'll be announcing soon, and they'll be
Okay.
sponsor the gut health den. So you will have experts in gut health moderating there. We have a partner in, we have a partner in sexual health. We have a partner in brain health and gut health. And then we also it's not a formal partnership, but we were endorsed by Systole Health, which is a women's heart health. And they said that they're excited to be on this journey and provide their expertise. So just as we started the call, whereas Fox is across everything, what we're doing is having partners and experts in every vertical to be active on our platform. So as much as you're tracking, you'll also be able to have these conversations in confidence that you are already speaking to an expert, and it's not for diagnosis. It's just for, do I need to go see a doctor for this? Or what should I ask? And really giving you the tools you need.
That's awesome. And I just am curious now. So you know how certain apps, and how this would work for you, especially because it is anonymous. So certain apps, like we talked about Noom or tracking, maybe your Fitbit tracks, and then you can tie it to your Apple Health, and then you can tie it to different things. Will there be any aspect of that, like where your partners are, your apps can tie in, or is it going to live in a silo? I mean, it's not a silo because you've got all these partners, but will it just be its own unique space that doesn't pull information from another tracking device?
Yeah, so interesting conversation because we've looked into partnering, or there are companies that exist that actually, not to get too technical, pull the APIs from all of the wearables that we can put into our system. So you can tie basically your Apple Watch, your Whoop, your Aura Ring into Fox, and then take that and run it through our AI as well. Now, that's something that's going to be coming later this year because that takes time. But ultimately, what we want to do is take that data and be able to still push it against the women's health data we're training the AI with, which gives a better, more full picture to, if you have your symptoms, your wearable data, and all of your questions that you've answered that prompt the AI. I mean, imagine what you'd be able to figure out and go to your doctor with. That means that you're showing up and you're going to be able to have the full picture to really get down into what's going on. And that's what we want to do.
Wow, I love it. I think you're doing a great job with it. And also, can you tell me a little bit about the fact that people can still invest?
Yes. People can still invest, and that is really as black and white as it gets. It's been a very daunting task, but we're going through our pre-seed round. And first and foremost, investors hate B2C. And the reason why is because it's a smaller price tag. We want it to be accessible to women. We'll have a freemium model with all of these features. The AI is premium. Once we add in wearable data, of course it's premium, but it's still affordable and accessible. And investors hate that. Number two is with going direct to consumer, they want you to have launched. I think pre-seed is misleading. I've been able to speak to a lot of investors, angels, VC companies, people who say, we invest in women at the pre-seed, the idea stage. I have, formal documents saying we love it, but launch first and show us 3 months worth of data. And which is fair. It lessens their risk, but I think it's also unfair for them to call themselves pre-seed and saying they want traction when we had a closed beta with 100 women who are on an advisory committee. We have 14 brand ambassadors. We have 7 partners, and we have women. We have a wait list of close to 500 women. And people want it. We do have traction. And so I'm focusing on the positive, but I'm also focusing on launching. What I want to do is get to launch, but we are also looking for investors on the angel level. We're looking for women who are passionate about this. We're looking for women who see this and they think, hell yeah, this is totally where health is going, and I want to be a part of it.
That's great, and I'm hoping you're going to find them. And I want to point out that we are recording this conversation in, I'm like, what month is it? July. But so it'll come out. Our conversation will come out right around the time we're hoping to coincide this with your official launch. So that's exciting, and we'll see where you are at that point in terms of investing. Will that stay open at that point once you're in September? I know that you've got something on your website where people can, for $2 a month, you can basically become a lifetime user, or is it $2 a month or $2 investment?
$2 a month.
Okay.
And that's for signing up for pre-order, like getting on our wait list.
Okay.
In a lifetime $2 a month for premium. So while we're adding all of these features, which will admittedly make the platform costs go up, you'll lock in the $2. And
Ooh.
the reason we're doing that is because we want women, again, to believe in what we're doing and show us, showing traction to investors, but also showing traction to us. Do we have proof of concept before we even launch? That's important. And if you could lock in that lifetime rate because you're like, yes, I do believe in this, I think it's worth it.
Absolutely. And, I want to go back for 1 second, and I don't want to keep you all day, but, you mentioned a lot of times, like, the questions that you have to ask a doctor. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but I feel like this is all I ever hear from a doctor anymore. If you have any questions, just ask it in the portal. I'm in like 15 portals. There's just entirely too many.
Yep.
Entirely too many portals. So this is kind of almost would act as an organizational hub for yourself so that you have this to go into each. Because I feel like when hospitals and healthcare systems set up portals, they thought those would be universal hubs. But unfortunately, we all have doctors in different systems. It's just now you're just remembering more passwords.
And they're not user-friendly at all. I don't know who built them, but oh my gosh, like do one user survey. No one wants to use them. And we really see this, and that's a big part of our evolution. Down the line, once we have users on it, how can we incorporate into those portals? Because FOXX has better UX. We're always thinking about how we can innovate and actually be a benefit to the healthcare system, because we don't want to further separate the patient to the doctor. We want to bridge the gap. And I completely agree. I think this would be a great opportunity for women to have a centralized location. And some of the questions are even like, make sure you ask who's responsible for following up. The amount questions that I've had from women, and not questions, comments I've had from women about, I went to a doctor and they said, okay, well, your test results will be back in 2 weeks. And then a month goes by, they don't hear anything, and they call, and the answer was, well, you were supposed to call us and your results are done. You need to schedule an appointment, and they're booking 3 months out. So now 4 months after an appointment for test results that took 2 weeks to come in. And it's just because they don't know, like, whose responsibility is it to call? Whose responsibility is it to schedule? How far in advance does this doctor book? Even having those types of questions will better allow us to take the control of our health.
Absolutely. And just curious, this is this. So I'm a list maker. If you put in all of these types of questions and you've got it all, is there a place where you could then say, okay, these are your action items based on all of the things that you've learned from your questions? So say you go to the doctors and they're like, okay, it's your responsibility and we need you to call this number on XYZ day and ask for this. Is there a kind of a place where you can have all of this information then stored, like what you're supposed to take from it?
So right now you can write notes under the questions, but you also have a note box and you can always go back to that. But one of the features we're looking to include for post-launch is we're working with scribe companies that are HIPAA compliant so you can go in and record your conversation with the doctor, and it will actually AI generate notes and action items from that then you can take with you. So we're still working with how that will work because, of course, all of the compliance with having a doctor, record on a third-party app and everything. So right now it's just through your notes, but we're already thinking about that because I completely agree. That would be so much better. I'm also a list person. FOXX was founded on me being a list person. And it's so funny when I hear that. So many women are like, I love making lists. I'm like, that's why we're here.
If I lose my list, we're done. Like there's just no going on.
I guess there's nothing to do. So
exactly. Thank you. I know my husband keeps it on his head. I'm like, I don't even know how you function in the world. Like I have to have a list. I have to be looking at something. So I want to go back to something else that you said, and then I'll let you wrap this up, or we'll wrap this up. But you mentioned in the beginning that you stripped your LinkedIn of all your background. This just as a woman in a professional space, can you give me a little background about why you did that, and what your goal was from that?
Absolutely. So it actually was partially not by choice. When I was working at the startup I was at before I started FOXX, I was in a hybrid chief revenue, chief marketing officer role. And so I was doing a lot of outbound messaging. And because of that, my profile was getting flat. And I ended up getting shut down by LinkedIn and they weren't letting me put it back up. So at the time I was like ready to start FOXX. So I made a second profile while my profile was still under review. And then they said, well, you can't have two profiles. So I had to choose. Did I want to keep my FOXX one, which at the time had 30 followers, 30 connections on it, or my other one, which had 3,500 connections, followers, a LinkedIn I've had since high school. Which one did I want to pick? And that was like a huge fork in the road for me. And I said, this background of mine no longer serves me. I'm going all in on FOXX. And so all I have on here is that I'm the founder of FOXX. And that's what I want you to focus on. I have my schooling on there, where I got my MBA and my undergrad. And aside from that, if you want to know, ask. And I'm open about it. I don't care if people know, but I wanted them to go and be like, this person is all in on FOXX. And that was my goal. And a lot of times people have said, I thought your profile was fake. So my goal was to hit 1,000, followers on it. And I did that last month. And that was a milestone because people believe people that other people believe. So it was kind of power in numbers. And now, no one really brings it up anymore when I'm just messaging them and whatnot. And it was a choice I had to make. I had to rebuild myself. And I don't have a medical background. And I didn't want that to deter from the fact that I am qualified to start FOXX, and it's going to be successful regardless of if I've worked in the medical field before.
Well, yeah. And and I should point out, for people who are listening, that you do have medical advisors. It's not like you're just running rogue, you
literally just me be like, oh yeah, I totally take some Tylenol. You'll be fine. No, we have the lead medical advisor from Flow Health. We have the head NP of all the health, big hospital system in Michigan. And we also have someone who's the chief information officer of a massive health brand in the Southwest. So we have people, and on our advisory committee, we have 10 doctors on it. So I'm not just going rogue. I promise.
Right.
And when I started it, people kind of thought I was. And I was like, really? You think so? You think I could make it happen like that? And so it was a journey because when I had 70 followers, I incorporated last November and I didn't start hiring until February. And I brought someone in for tech in February or March, and we launched the beta in May. And so to find people who who resonate with this mission so much, 13 people work at FOXX right now, and every single person is motivated by our mission, what we're doing, and the fact that all of these women are just so passionate about what we're doing is a testament to what we're building is going to work.
And also a testament to how much it's needed.
Yep.
I don't think there's a woman in the world that hasn't experienced some type of dismissiveness or yes, there's really no other word for it. I'm like, you're dismissed at the doctor's office when you're going in for something that and the worst is if you feel very serious about it, like you did, you're like, I could be dying. You think you're dying. You're having all the symptoms of something that can kill somebody, but you're kind of being, I don't want to say laughed off, but it's almost like you're being deemed hysterical, crazy. You're not to be believed. And it's really disheartening that we still face that in the medical community. But again, it's not necessarily the doctor's fault. Their time is limited themselves. So I think what you're doing is a great thing.
Thank you so much. We're very excited about it. And yeah, it launches in September. And I was just telling the team we have a weekly all hands on Mondays. And I was telling them that right now we're working with each other and it's like just us in this little bubble. When we launch, it's all about the customer. Like the feedback we received in a closed beta will be different than feedback we'll receive from the masses. And we're marketing right now, but we're marketing us as people and a brand. And now we're going to market to sell. And everything will change. And so we're kind of in like this happy little bubble because we're so excited and everyone's working so hard to build. And what, the FOXX we knew will completely turn in September. And that's also a part of the founder journey, something that's the unknown. So I'm really proud of the team and excited for September.
Oh, well, I'm excited for it too. And I'm going to sign up. Well, I'm already on your mailing list, but I'm gonna sign up as a $2 lifetime subscriber myself. So $2 a month. I want to make that clear. Last thing I have for you. So a lot of the time, I speak to women on Roar and they are implementing something new, or they've created an app or a program, or they work in a field. And a lot of times they do it because of their own experience. And, there's women who run for office because it's not something you didn't wake up one day and say, you know what I really feel like doing? Creating an app for women's health. It was out of necessity, right? Yeah. You saw a gap, you created something. A lot of women do that, and that's awesome. And that's what we're highlighting here. But sometimes women don't, and they've got like those seeds of self-doubt, and they're like, well, I really do think we need this, but I'm not a medical doctor. I mean, and you could have said this yourself. You could have said, I'm not in medicine. I don't know. Somebody should do this, but it's not going to be me. What do you want the woman listening, maybe who's exhausted, dismissed, or doubting herself, to hear from you right now as somebody who did have kind of the get up and go to go after it?
That is a heavy question. What I would want them to hear from me is, if you want change, don't wait for somebody else, because chances are you'll be waiting a very long time, if not forever. The other bit is all of the self-doubt. It will only get worse as a founder. Being a founder is not for the faint of heart. So before you step into it, know that it will be the most empowering thing you do, and it will also be the hardest. And having a support system in place is so important in becoming a founder. Everyone talks about being a girl boss, and everyone wants to be a CEO of their own company, but you can't do it alone. So if you have an idea, talk to people about it, because community and the people you can lean on are going to be your best asset to actually making it a reality.
Awesome. Maria, thank you so much. I can't wait till this episode airs, and I can't wait till I'm on FOXX officially. So thank you so much. And everybody, all the connections, all the links to everything Maria is talking about will be in our show notes. So be sure to check those. And thank you so much. Thanks so much to Maria Haugen, founder of FOXX Health, for joining us today and sharing her vision for women's health. Next week, I'll be talking with Stephanie Thompson, author of The Day My Vagina Broke. It's raw, it's real, and you don't want to miss it. If you liked today's episode, share it with a friend, leave a comment, or sign up for my email list in the show notes so you never miss what's next. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.